So section 3 is all about how we look at one quantitative variable. So we're kind of back to the basics, right? If I just want to look at the number of points scored by our football team last year, that's just one quantitative variable, like per game. So we have lots of displays for this. We saw all of them in that preview activity: histograms, dot plots, and stem and leaf plots. And we're just going to breeze through this really quick as an intro. A histogram is basically the bar chart for quantitative data. So we have that spring exam data again. And I just want to make a note here. The reason why histograms are very useful is that they can bin our data for us. And they usually do so automatically in a nice, meaningful way. Where here I unbinned our data, so you can actually see the lowest score was a 0 exactly. And then it looks like the second lowest score was about an 18. And then we had somebody who scored a 21. So this can be kind of useful because we can see the individual scores, but it kills a little bit of the shape of our distribution. Whereas if we bin the data, especially these bins, are very meaningful because this bin here means that these students scored a B, right? They're binned in a meaningful way. As I mentioned in class, I just want to make sure it's in our notes. The bins include the lower value, and they do not include the upper value. So for an example, this little section right here, those B's that I brought up, if you wanted to write this in interval notation, those values are from 80 inclusive up to 90, but not including 90. So anyone who has a 90 would be in the next bin, in the A bin, right? So let's go ahead and see how this would work in an exercise. Just like always, I recommend that you pause the video, try this out, and then come back as soon as you've done so. All right, so two things I like to do whenever I'm working with a histogram in terms of interpreting it. One is most histograms don't put all the different bin cutoffs at the bottom. This is just because we can figure out that right between 10 and 20 is 15. Right between 20 and 30 is 25. We know these bins always have to be equal size. So that's one of the rules of a histogram. So we can go ahead and fill these in. I say this just because I've had students previously tell me the lowest wind speed was between 0 and 10 just because that 5 wasn't there. So take the time to write them in because you don't want to accidentally interpret something incorrectly because you didn't take that moment. The other thing I like to do is add the actual counts at the top of each of these. So remember, down here at the bottom, they're showing us the wind speed of days, and the height of these bars is telling us how many days fell into that wind speed category, into that range of values. So one day, the winds were very calm, between 0 and 5 miles per hour. We have 2 days that fell here, 3. Definitely draw lines over so that you don't have any mistakes. 6, 4, 5, 9, 6, 4, and 1. Now, if you wanted to, you could add all of these together to get your total number of days, right? 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. I get bored. I will always be nice to you guys on the test, on any homework, anything like this. I will give you what the total number is. It doesn't mean it's not a bad idea to do this to check that you have not had these at the wrong heights or something, but you do not necessarily need to do this because the value will be given to you. So if we're talking about what percentage of speeds are between 30 and 50 miles per hour, well, we know what our total is because that's all the days, right? So there's 43. And we just need to figure out the number of days that fall into this category, between 30 and 50 miles per hour. So 30 is here, 50 is here, and between those two values, well, that would be all of this stuff, right? And we can just go ahead and add up those days. So we're 3 days, 6, 4, and 5. So 18 of the 43 days fell into this category of between 30 and 50 miles per hour. So we have 41.86%. And I know I mentioned the 4 decimal places. I don't want 4 decimal places on percents because in my mind a percent is already a decimal. It was a proportion to begin with. So this is perfect. All right, if you didn't pause before, try it on this next one. So now we're talking about speeds being above 60 or below 20. So what we'd want to do is get rid of all of this area that we were interested in before and rethink what we are looking at. Above 60 would be these 5 days, right? So there are 5 days above 60. And then below 20, oh yeah, below 20, it appears that there are 2 days that fall into that category. So of the 43, there are 7 that fall into these different things. A lot of students get tripped up on this, like, well, it can't be both. Or does not mean, it just means that we had an extreme day, either extremely windy or extremely calm. So 7 out of 43, this is 16.28%. All right, that's interpreting a histogram.